Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. Welcome back to a Division 2 video, and I hope you had some great days and some enjoyment with the family, the friends, Christmas and all, or whatever you celebrate. But I'm back with a banger of a build. This might be my favorite new bleed build. We know the bleed builds have been running rampant through the game, especially with the LMG, especially with that Tinkerer mask being introduced. But now we are just running around with an automatic rifle. Yes, this build can shred through everything and can one clip multiple named enemies. Yes, walk up to the Krampuslauf, walk up to a control point, walk up to a kill squad, you can just shred through people. The bullets will always be amplified all the way up to 95% amplification damage. The damage is instantly there, it almost never goes away, and this is such free damage. No, we're not utilizing Striker. No, we're not even going into Vigilance. No, we're not even going into Killer. And we're still doing close to 2.5 million on the head without any GE or season active. This is so much fun to play with, as the LMGs are awesome, but utilizing the automatic rifles, getting a little bit closer to that AR feeling, this is the way to go. It is so much fun. You can shred through people. 1.8 million on the body to 2.5, close to 2.5 on the head. Constantly there. Even if you get hit, you can still do millions of damage. It doesn't matter. This is so much fun. I will of course show you a few more gameplay clips in between and at the end. And of course, like always, we have the timestamps down below. Let's jump right in. Enough intro, enough gameplay. Starting with our specialization, we are utilizing the gunner specialization, the minigun. Why? For that third reload that will be 50% faster, but mainly for the 10% armor on kill, giving us still some survivability on this full red build. Then jumping over to our weapons. Like I already mentioned in the intro, we are utilizing the automatic rifles, and I fell in love with the lightweight M4. On this build, it's close to 280,000 total damage, RPM of 360, a mag of 50, or if we reload, a mag of 51. It has a headshot damage of 80% and an optimal range of 50. On the weapon itself, I personally have an extra expertise, all the way to max 30% extra weapon damage, and of course, we're gonna go for the extra attribute damage to target out of cover, what you always want to choose except for LMGs, as that will benefit the LMGs a little bit more. Then we're going down and we're going to the first talent, and that will be Sadist. Sadist, amplify weapon damage by 30% to bleeding enemies. After 4 kills, apply bleed to the next enemy you hit. That second part we can kinda ignore because it's all about amplifying our damage to bleeding enemies, as we will be always running around with bleed bullets. Another huge shout, as this build goes a little bit more in quality of life than go into damage. So when we scroll down, we modded our gun and we have stability on our optic rail and we have stability on our muzzle, a total of 70% extra. So yes, you can even go into some extra crit chances if you feel like you can control the weapon easily without the stability, but we would always recommend, just like on the other OD build, just like we're utilizing on the LMGs, that extra stability on there, just changing this weapon in a straight up laser beam. Next to that, we chose to go for an extra 5% crit chance and an extra 20 rounds, minus the 10% reload, of course. Then for our secondary weapon, because usually that doesn't really matter, but on this build it matters. We chose to go for another rifle, classic M1A, but it does not matter what this weapon does. The only thing that matters is that secondary talent. Or better said, the talent on your secondary. And that will be pressure point. Amplify weapon damage by 15% to enemies under a status effect. Again, because we always be shooting blade bullets, we will always be shooting at enemies that are under a status effect, so we will always have that extra 15% amplification damage. So from Pressure Point, and then of course from our other talent Sadis, we're already gaining a 45% amplification damage. Of course it keeps amplifying, so it's not really that 45, but for the easy calculations, let's keep it at 45. Again, we chose to go for quality of life, because there are a bunch of other talents, like for example Killer, that will do more damage for us. The only downfall of Killer is that you need to take people out. It's not always instantly there, and if you play with the group, there might be a teammate that takes that kill from you and Killer won't activate. Again, just like with all our mods on our primary weapon, we chose to go for quality of life, the damage always being active with Pressure Point. For the pistol, you can choose whatever you like. I utilize the quick step. I have everything else already on my proficiency or expertise. Why do I say this? Because your secondary and your pistol will also gain 20% of the total XP that you gain within the game. So if you want to run around fast like I do, whenever I take somebody out, I switch over to my pistol. You are 20% faster. You're sprinting over the field, especially in retaliation, helps you out a lot if you have some problems with time management. But you can also put a pistol here that you don't have proficient yet, gain that extra proficiency, and it will save you into duplicates and or materials. And this is the whole overview of the build. Yes, we go for 4 pieces of ongoing directive. Because of the 2 damage talents, you already guessed we would go for, of course, that Tinkerer mask. And we chose to go for Cheska backpack. So let's start with the Tinkerer mask, because we just talked about the damage talents on our weapons. Tinkerer. What will this do for us? This will activate both the talents of our weapon throughout the talent Abridged. If your primary and secondary weapon are not exotic or named and of the same type, the secondary weapon talent will also be applied to primary weapon. Does not stack if the primary or secondary weapons talent includes weapon swapping. Does not apply if the primary and secondary weapon talents are the same. That's why we're running around with 2 talents that will complement each other with, of course, Sadist and then a Pressure Point. Whenever we apply a status effect or that bleed, we get that extra amplification damage. This will only work for your primary weapon. If you zoom in on your weapon, in the middle of your screen, there will be an orange A popping up from Abridged. If it's orange, you know that the Abridged talent is active. The moment that we switch over to our secondary weapon, you will see this A turn red. Now you know that the Abridged talent is not active, so you cannot switch it around. If, for example, your primary is empty, you switch over to your secondary and still everything works accordingly, that is not the case. It will only be applied to your primary weapon. Then, of course, the OD overview. Why OD? Because this will give us a status effect, reload speed, what is very nice, getting us to that 1.5 second reload speed on the rifle, but we're all doing it for the rules of engagement. Shooting a status affected enemy will apply a mark. Killing a marked enemy grants you a full clip of hollow point ammo for your active weapon and half of the clip of the agent's active weapon to the rest of the party. Marks last 10 seconds. Hollow point ammo amplifies weapon damage by 20% and applies bleed on hit. But because we are utilizing the chest piece, this 20% will go up to 50% because we're using the Parabellum rounds. Increase hollow point ammo weapon damage amplification to 50%. this bonus does not apply to party members. Because if we scroll back, you see that we are not only giving ourselves that amplification damage, but also half of our clip will go to our teammates. So next that you are shredding through everyone with that 1.8 on the body to 2.5 on the head, you also will give that 20% amplification damage to your teammates, helping them shred through the NPCs a lot faster as well. That's why we would always recommend you to go for the chest piece of ongoing directive, because that extra 30% amplification damage that you get, it's definitely worth it. And then for the rest of the pieces of OD, you're gonna put it on your holster, you're gonna put it on your knee pads, and you're gonna put it on your gloves. Everything's gonna be towards crit chances and crit damages. I will show you the stats in a little bit, what you want to aim for, because we can get to that perfect 59% crit chance, and then the rest we can just stack into critical hit damage. Then for the last piece of the build is going to be the backpack, and this is Cheska. Why Cheska? This will give us an 8% critical hit chance, getting us close to that cap of 60. And of course, the attributes are going to be rolled towards crit chance and crit damages, same as the mod. And now we chose to go for the talent Wicked. Again, into quality of life, as of course vigilance will give us that 7% more damage output with the 25% weapon damage, but Wicked will always be active, where vigilance, when you get hit, it will fall away for 4 seconds, or the perfect one for 3 seconds. So what will Wicked do for us? Applying a status effect increases the total weapon damage by 18% for 20 seconds. Because we're always applying those bleed bullets throughout our OD, we always have that extra 18% weapon damage. Yes, it's a little bit lower than vigilance, but it's always there. And then if we look back to the overview of the build, everything is so incredibly free. Our talents on our weapons are incredibly free. The moment we have bleed bullets, these will both be activated, same as for our backpack. And that's why this is such a great build to run around with. For our skills, I utilize my foam launcher, my cam launcher. I like this a lot. I can foam them down, I can foam them out of cover. But of course, most importantly, whenever you start this build, you need to foam somebody down, or at least I foam somebody down. You have to apply a status effect to someone, take him out to get the first row of bleed bullets. After that, you almost never ever have to use your skills anymore, and that's what I kind of wanted to build towards. As for example, with ARs, it's a lot harder to keep up 100% bleed bullets, and it just feels like you're just too dependent on your skills. And with the LMGs and this rifle build, we can just keep up those bleed bullets most of the time. And that's why I use the foam launcher. I foam them down, I take them out, I get my bleed bullets, it's there forever. But you can also, because we're running around with the gunner specialization, you can also go for the Banshee pulse. That is a fan favorite skill as well. Next to that, I still of course use my revive hive, giving me some extra life, because you can still get overrun or not paying attention within a retaliation. A hugger runs up to you and you have to pick yourself up. It's still a great way to give yourself a little extra life, because we're still running around with a full red build. Then over to the stats, we are hunting down that beautiful 59% crit chance, and then that 122% critical hit damage. So again, if you're hunting down all those pieces, make sure to focus on that 59% crit chance first, and then stack everything else into critical hit damage. But we can also change it around a little bit if you want a little bit more survivability, or of course maybe even more quality of life. If we go back to the build itself, there is one change that I could recommend if you want a little bit more survivability but still doing the millions of crit shots. That will be a backpack of Palisade. It is gonna be a hard one to find. Why Palisade? Because this will give us an extra 10% armor on kill, boosting our build up to 20% armor on kill. Then the only problem is that we have to find it with Wicked, critical hit chance, and critical hit damage on there so we can roll that armor core away. We can still do millions of crits if you keep it this way. So if you want that little extra armor, getting close to that 1 million total armor, then you can run it with an armor core and you can still do millions of crits. But of course you will lose a bunch of damage, as losing that extra 15% weapon damage and also that 8% crit chance, where you might have to change a few other rolls around to get that crit chance up higher. But this, the Palisade backpack, then again with the same setup, Wicked on there, crit chance, crit damage, and then put whatever mod on there, crit chance or crit damage, what you need for your build. This would be my alternative to run. Same as for the weapons, you can go for whatever you like. I've been hearing a lot of people having fun with the ACRSS. We've been enjoying that on the PC side of things as well. There are a bunch of rifles that are automatic right now and that you can definitely utilize within this build. So let me know in the comments down below, did you make this build already and did you know this was viable? Because I'm gonna be very honest, I didn't expect this build to be this viable. It is so easy to keep up your bleed bullets, and with that said, I want to have a huge shout out to Buzzified as well. He gave me this idea to test it out on the bleed bullets because, as you know, 2-3 weeks ago we dropped our updated automatic rifle build, and Bozzy was talking about this build already. We tested it out, we looked into a few things, and man, he was absolutely right. This might be my favorite OD build over the LMG build. But it's gonna be close. It's gonna be very close. But that's it for me. Thank you very much for sticking until the end. Like the video if you liked the video or helped you out in any way or form. And of course, if you're new here and or you want to be updated by the Division 2, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. And I will see you in the next one. Pure Prime out.